One delivery to the wrong house and my entire life was flipped upside down. An open door, a chilling discovery, and suddenly I was trapped in a nightmare, fighting to prove I wasn't the villain they wanted me to be. Let me tell you, the day this all started was supposed to be just another Tuesday. Boring, predictable, and filled with the usual grind. My name's Daniel, 25 years old, and I've been hustling as a delivery guy for one of those We Deliver Everything apps. You know the type. Customers treat you like you're some magical food fairy, and the app keeps taking bigger cuts than your ex on alimony. Anyway, that day I was running behind schedule because some genius thought it was a great idea to block the entire street with their "I'm compensating for something" truck. By the time I got the next order, I was already done with the day. The app pinged. Some fancy house across town. Great. These types of deliveries are usually one of two things. Either a massive tip or an awkward standoff with someone who's too rich to look you in the eye. The house itself? Oh man, it was straight out of a horror movie. Old, creaky, and standing there like it was waiting to swallow me whole. The kind of place that makes you say, "Dude, what the hell are you even doing here?" I pulled up, double-checked the address because I wasn't about to walk into the wrong haunted mansion, and grabbed the bag of food. It smelled amazing, by the way, probably the only highlight of my night so far. I rang the doorbell, and surprise, surprise, it didn't work. Figures. I knocked, but nobody answered. I was about 2 seconds away from snapping a photo and leaving the food on the porch when I noticed the door was slightly open. Not like, oh, someone's expecting me open, but more like, hey, a serial killer lives here, open. Now, common sense would have told me to leave, right? But no, my dumb ass decided to poke my head inside. "Hello? Delivery guy here. Anybody home?" My voice echoed back like I was in a freaking cave. No answer. At this point, every horror movie I've ever seen was screaming at me to get the hell out of there. But curiosity is a nasty little thing, isn't it? I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Not the good kind, like the food in the bag, but metallic and sharp. You know, the kind that makes your stomach churn before your brain even processes it. I walked a few steps further, and that's when I saw him. A guy, middle-aged, lying there on the floor, surrounded by a pool of his own blood. His eyes were wide open, staring at nothing, like he'd just seen the end of the world. My body froze. My brain was screaming, "Run, you idiot!" But my feet were stuck like they were glued to the floor. Then reality smacked me in the face. I dropped the food and bolted out of there, my heart pounding like a drum solo at a rock concert. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking as I dialed 911. Yeah, I'm at, I stammered, trying to remember the address. The operator's voice was calm, too calm for what I'd just seen. "Sir, are you in immediate danger?" she asked. "No, but someone else sure as hell was," I blurted out, still out of breath. I told her about the body, the blood, the smell, everything. Within minutes, the flashing red and blue lights lit up the street. Police swarmed the place like ants on a dropped popsicle. They told me to stay put, but my gut was telling me this was going to get messy. And boy, was I right. As the officers went inside, I stood there on the lawn, trying to calm my breathing. I told myself, "You did the right thing, Daniel. You're a good citizen." But deep down, something didn't feel right. Then one of the cops came out, and the way he looked at me made my stomach drop. It wasn't the "thank you for helping" look. It was the "we've got questions" look. And just like that, my normal Tuesday turned into the start of a nightmare. I didn't even get a chance to breathe before they had me cornered. 2 officers, both looking like they'd seen one too many cop dramas, approached me with the kind of energy that screamed, "You're about to have a bad day." One of them, Officer Beard, not his real name, but the dude had a beard so thick it could hide a family of birds, gave me the up and down look. "So you're the one who called this in?" he asked, like he didn't believe a word coming out of my mouth before I even opened it. Yeah, I stammered. "I'm the delivery guy. Just dropped off some food, saw the door open, and bam! Dead body on the floor. You're welcome for the call, by the way." Beard didn't flinch. His partner, Officer Buzzcut, leaned in like he was sniffing for trouble. "Mind telling us why you were inside the house?" he asked, his tone making it clear he already had me pegged as guilty of something. "Why?" "Because the damn door was open," I snapped, my nerves fraying. What was I supposed to do? Leave the food and run? Thought maybe someone needed help. "Uh-huh," Buzzcut muttered, scribbling something in his little notepad. The way he wrote, you'd think he was drafting my confession right then and there. Then it happened. The moment that turned my night from bad to straight-up catastrophic. Beard looked down at my shoes, squinting like he was solving a Rubik's Cube. "What's that on your boots?" I glanced down. Blood. Shit, my stomach flipped. "Oh, come on. I groaned. I must have stepped in it when I was backing out of the house. You think I'm going to waltz into a crime scene and start leaving footprints on purpose? Beard didn't laugh. He just motioned to Buzzcut, who immediately radioed someone. We're going to need a forensics kit out here, he said, like I wasn't even standing right there. The tension was thick enough to cut with a butter knife. My pulse was racing. I knew where this was heading, and it wasn't anywhere good. Another cop came out of the house, and the look on his face said it all. Something in there wasn't adding up. And guess who was about to be their number one suspect? Yours truly. You mind telling us what you were delivering? Beard asked, his tone shifting to that condescending, let's see if you trip over your own story vibe. It was food. Chinese, I think, I said, shrugging. Look, you can check the order on my app. It's all there. Timestamp, address, the whole 9 yards. But they weren't buying it. What's in the bag? Buzzcut asked. It's food, I repeated, exasperated. Seriously, you guys think I killed someone and then decided to hang around with chow mein as my alibi? Beard didn't crack a smile. Instead, he nodded toward one of the other officers. Bring the bag. Oh, and here's the kicker. When they opened it, there wasn't just food inside. No, of course not. That would have been too easy. There was a knife, a big-ass kitchen knife, and it had blood on it. My jaw hit the floor. What the hell? I blurted out. That's not mine. I didn't put that in there. Are you kidding me right now? Beard raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? Seems like an odd coincidence. Blood on your boots, a bloody knife in the bag you delivered. Pretty convenient if you ask me. Convenient for who? I yelled, my frustration boiling over. I'm just a delivery guy. You think I carry around murder weapons with my egg rolls? By this point, the other cops were looking at me like I'd just confessed to killing half the neighborhood. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. I felt like I was drowning, and no one was throwing me a life preserver. Buzzcut stepped closer, his hand resting on his belt. We're going to need you to come down to the station, just to answer a few questions. Questions? Seriously? I'm the one who called you guys. I didn't do anything. But it didn't matter. They weren't listening. I could feel it in the air. To them, I wasn't the guy who stumbled into a nightmare. I was the nightmare. And there was nothing I could say to change their minds. Before I knew it, my hands were in cuffs, and I was being shoved into the back of a squad car. The food bag, now evidence, sat mockingly on the hood of another police car. As we drove off, I couldn't stop thinking, how the hell did I go from delivering dumplings to being a goddamn murder suspect? The courtroom felt like a stage, and I was the villain of the show, packed with reporters and locals hungry for drama. It was clear no one was rooting for me. My court-appointed lawyer, Todd, or Ted, who cares, looked like he barely passed the bar. His confidence was about as solid as a wet paper bag. The judge hit me with the usual, "How do you plead?" I stood, knees shaking. "Not guilty, Your Honor." My voice cracked. Not a good start. The prosecutor, let's call him Mr. Perfect, went all in on his performance. The evidence is clear. Blood on his boots, fingerprints on the murder weapon, and let's not forget the knife conveniently found in his delivery bag. He strutted around like a peacock, painting me as a cold-blooded killer. When it was Todd's turn, his opening was as inspiring as a DMV line. My client is innocent. Just a delivery guy caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Great defense, buddy. Then came the witnesses. First, a forensic expert dissected the blood evidence like it was an episode of CSI. The blood on his boots matches the victim's, he said, pointing at a fancy chart. Todd barely objected. Next, a nosy neighbor testified, "I saw him go inside. He looks suspicious." Suspicious? Lady, I was holding a food bag, not a machete. The prosecution's final blow? Doorbell footage showing me walking into the house. No crime, just me stepping inside. But that was enough for the jury. Mr. Perfect turned to them with a smirk, like he'd just solved world hunger. Todd mumbled through his closing arguments, something about reasonable doubt, but it was pointless. The jury didn't take long. When they came back, I already knew the answer. "Guilty," the foreman said, his voice slicing through me like a knife. "Life in prison. No parole." As they led me out, the prosecutor shook hands like he'd won an award. My lawyer? He couldn't even meet my eyes. And just like that, I went from delivery guy to convicted murderer, all because I answered the wrong doorbell. The courtroom felt like a stage, and I was the villain of the show, packed with reporters and locals hungry for drama. It was clear no one was rooting for me. My court-appointed lawyer, Todd, or Ted, who cares, looked like he barely passed the bar. His confidence was about as solid as a wet paper bag. The judge hit me with the usual, "How do you plead?" I stood, knees shaking. "Not guilty, Your Honor." My voice cracked. Not a good start. The prosecutor, let's call him Mr. Perfect, went all in on his performance. The evidence is clear. Blood on his boots, fingerprints on the murder weapon, and let's not forget the knife conveniently found in his delivery bag. He strutted around like a peacock, painting me as a cold-blooded killer. When it was Todd's turn, his opening was as inspiring as a DMV line. My client is innocent. Just a delivery guy caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Great defense, buddy. Then came the witnesses. First, a forensic expert dissected the blood evidence like it was an episode of CSI. The blood on his boots matches the victim's, he said, pointing at a fancy chart. Todd barely objected. Next, a nosy neighbor testified. I saw him go inside. He looked suspicious. Suspicious? Lady, I was holding a food bag, not a machete. The prosecution's final blow? Doorbell footage showing me walking into the house. No crime, just me stepping inside. But that was enough for the jury. Mr. Perfect turned to them with a smirk, like he'd just solved world hunger. Todd mumbled through his closing arguments, something about reasonable doubt, but it was pointless. The jury didn't take long. When they came back, I already knew the answer. Guilty, the foreman said, his voice slicing through me like a knife. Life in prison. No parole. As they led me out, the prosecutor shook hands like he'd won an award. My lawyer? He couldn't even meet my eyes. And just like that, I went from delivery guy to convicted murderer, all because I answered the wrong doorbell. Prison was a shock. The second those gates closed behind me, it was clear I was just another face in the crowd. But to the other inmates, I stood out, a new target. My cellmate barely spoke. Don't touch my stuff and we're fine, he muttered, turning away. Not exactly a warm welcome. The first test came in the cafeteria. A massive guy, Tank, decided to make me his entertainment. Hey, delivery boy, where's my dinner? He shouted, loud enough for everyone to hear. The room fell silent, all eyes on me. I knew backing down would make me a permanent target, so I shot back. Sorry, they ran out of your size in the kitchen. The room erupted, but Tank wasn't laughing. He shoved me, and before things could escalate, the guards stepped in. It wasn't fun, but it earned me a sliver of respect. I spent the next weeks adjusting, keeping my head down and writing letters to anyone who might help. Most went unanswered, and the few replies were dead ends. Meanwhile, one guard, Officer Green, made it his mission to remind me I didn't belong. How's life, delivery boy? Bet you missed the good old days, he'd sneer. I stayed quiet, but his words stung. The breaking point came one night when two guys slipped into my cell, pinning me down. This is for Tank, one whispered before my cellmate shouted for the guards, scaring them off. I sat there, shaken but determined. No one was coming to save me. If I wanted out of this nightmare, I had to fight. Not with fists, but with the truth. I wasn't giving up.